we're going to do a demo program today for Chapter 7. I want you to know I was in here on Saturday, and the associated lecture that I usually do, we do a lab demo on Mondays and then lecture on Wednesday. I'm not going to be here on Wednesday. There is no official class. The room will be open. All right. Ben will be here. John hurt his back over the weekend. He may or may not be here today. He may or may not be here on Wednesday. He can barely walk. All right. So somebody will be here, though, and you are not required to come. I know that some instructors, when they have a class and they're not going to be there, they require that you come and sign something. I don't do that. So again, I will not be here at all on Wednesday. All right. And the lecture is here. It's over an hour long for the one, well, that's the 143 one, but the 142 one is out there also. They're both about an hour and 5 minutes long or something like that. All right. So that said, as you typically do when you come in here in the morning when we're doing this, if you go out to the P drive for the class, there is a folder out there under 03-30-2015. You can either copy that whole folder or just grab inside of there the ArrayFun class folder, but either way, I want that on your virtual desktop. And if that confused you, I'm going to do it for you in just a minute and show you exactly what I mean. So again, if you do go out here, you'll notice there is a folder out here with today's date on it. There it is, 3/30/2015. And a couple things. First of all, if I open that folder up, this is the file there, or the project that we're going to be working with. Okay, ArrayFun class. And the other thing is I started looking over the weekend and I found this stuff out online. This is all free if you're interested. All right, Microsoft Virtual Academy, you have to sign up for their academy to do this, but it's free. I don't think they've ever even sent me an email on this, so it's not like they deluge you with emails. They've got a free course out there, and this is actually, it's C# Fundamentals for Absolute Beginners. And I found a few more out here also. The guy who runs this site, learnvisualstudio.net, his name is Bob Tabor. He's very easy to listen to. He's got a nice voice. He goes through things in a very deliberate manner, and he's got a C#, it's 2010, but the concepts are still the same. For Absolute Beginners, he's got another C# one for ASP.NET, so those of you who are going to take that class in fall, there's an ASP.NET MVC class in HTML5 and CSS3, and for those of you who may be struggling in the afternoon class, a JavaScript and jQuery fundamentals class. All right, so all that stuff is out there. All right, so I'm going to grab this one right here, this ArrayFun thing, and I'm literally just going to take it and right mouse click on it and drag it to my desktop. All right, tell it I want it to copy it there. That's what I want to do. So I'm hoping that by now you've all had a chance to do that. All right, so here it is, and when you double click on it, hopefully you're aware of this by now, this not the folder, but the file that's in there, that's your Visual Studio project file. If you double click on that file, that starts up Visual Studio and the project. So this is what you have in there right now. And it's, for lack of better words, it's semi-functional. All right. In other words, the exit button works, and I don't think much more does, but we're going to write the rest of the code today to do this. And while we're doing it, I'm going to talk to you a little bit, try to explain to you a few things about arrays, which is what this chapter is about. So right now, if you click Original Array, all it does is it just gives you the heading, Original Array. But the ascending, descending, largest tells you it's 0, smallest it tells you it's 0, average it tells you it's 0, sum it tells you it's 0, because those haven't been implemented yet. That doesn't work, and the exit works. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So what I tried to do here was to show you on this screen that you see right in front of you exactly what this program is going to do. All right. When we click the button, when we click the button right here that says original, when we click that button, I'll give you the code, but after we click that button, then what's going to happen is it's going to create 25 random numbers, and they can repeat, it doesn't matter. But they're going to be numbers that don't mean anything, and they'll be in no special order. Now, if you notice here, you go, well, there's only 23. There are 25. I just can't fit them all on the screen here. All right? And so that's going to be what we get when we first start to run the program. Okay? Then if you notice, the next button there says ascending. When we click that button, it's going to go from this to this, which is the same list but in ascending order. And we're going to do that through code. Okay? Then when we click the next button, the descending, it's then going to do this, the same numbers in descending order. All right? And then what we got left is, if we wanted the numbers in original order, all right, if we click that button, literally it's going to give us, so that column right there is the same as that one right there. That's the numbers in original order. But you're all smart enough that if you look at this column here, and you look at this column here, if I asked you what's the biggest number, you'd know it's 100 because there it is. If I asked you what's the smallest number, you'd say it's 1 because there it is. All right? And if I added those numbers together, I would get 1182. That's just the sum. There's no special meaning to these numbers, but that's what I'd get. If I took that 1182 and divided it by 25, I'd get 47.28. So that's the average. Does all that stuff make sense? Now, we could do this, and we could create 25 different variables. num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, all the way through num25. We could do that. And then run our random number function 25 times, once for each number. That'd be really stupid. I mean, we could do that, but we'd get a lot of code. We could end up forgetting one of them. What if I forgot 17? Now I've screwed it up, type of an idea. So what we've been working with so far in this class is what are literally referred to as primitive variables. They're variables that can only hold one value at a time. All right? We've done a little bit of work with strings, but even a string can really hold one value at a time. Today we're kind of making a leap into Chapter 7, where we're going to work with what's referred to as a data structure. And with a data structure, the key thing about data structures is they can hold more than one value at a time. So we're going to create an array called numbers, and it's going to have 25 components. So we're going to have one variable with 25 values, as opposed to what we've been doing in the past with 25 variables, each with their own value. All right? And I'm seeing some head shake, and that's good. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Again, you'll have to read the chapter. And as I mentioned, I tried to do this slowly and deliberately when I was in here on Saturday, all right? And that is to sit there and go over the material that's in the class. You're going to find that much, and I mean much, of the material that he goes through in the class, much of it, all right, we're doing in this program. All right? For those of you who are in both classes, so if you're in the class after this, the Java class, well, what we're going to do in there is we're going to write this same program, but in Java. And you're going to really realize just exactly how similar the two languages are, if you have not already. All right, so I'm taking for granted that you did all that stuff that I asked you to do. So let's take a look at the code and see what we have in here. Comment at the top that we put in. And not bad. I mean, it does tell what's going on. Simple array program designed to do some fundamental array operations. We can populate an array with 25, should have said numbers, random numbers, sort the array in ascending or descending order, get the largest value from the array, the smallest value of the array, the average array value, and the sum of the array values. All right? So, when you start to create this, it's a little bit different to look at. That's the syntax. Int, bracket, bracket, numbers equals new int 25. All right? And not to confuse you, but look at it this way. Let's just grab the first one here. What that's doing, for lack of better words, imagine that what you had were 25 mailboxes that were in a row. All right? And they were maybe in some kind of an apartment complex. Now, we're used to the first apartment would be apartment 1, the second apartment would be apartment 2, etc. But we start counting here with 0. So even though we say that it's of size 25, instead of going from 1 to 25, it goes from 0 to 24. So the first number that we put in there will be put in as, it'll look like this. So if we figured out, if we ran the random number generator and it gave, in fact, what was the first number that we had here? It's 45. Well, that was close. All right. So that's what that's going to do. And this is saying go over to the numbers array, and in the first location of the array, put the value 45 in there. All right. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, it may confuse you because I've got two things here that look exactly the same, two different arrays. One that's called numbers and one that's called original. But it shouldn't confuse you because if you remember, I've got a button up here that says always show me the numbers in original order. Well, after I start to change their order, it's not in original order anymore. So what I'm going to do when I do this is I'm going to save this. So once I fill the array, I'm also going to save this, so this one's never going to change. But this one is going to change all the time. All right. The exit, same stuff we've been doing. Again, I wrote it as a separate routine, exit program, and it's the same junk we've been doing all semester. So that's in there. That's already been put in there for you. All right. And then notice most of the, not all of it, but most of the rest of it that's in here is pretty empty. All right. When we ask for new numbers right there, that button new numbers, that's what's going to happen when we click that button right there that says new numbers. So when we click that, we're going to call fill array. What that means is give me 25 new numbers. So imagine we clicked it. That would mean that instead of having these numbers that we saw right here, we'd have different ones. And really, the chance of you running this program and getting the exact same numbers in the exact same order more than once it's almost not even possible. All right? Because think about it. There's 100 different numbers. Okay? So really, it'd be astronomical for that to happen. No matter how many times you even ran the program, you'd probably die first. All right? People love it when I talk like that. All right. This is going to fill the array, and so notice that when we call the button for the new array, it's going to call fill array. Well, I took the code out. I'm going to give it to you, but we're going to write it as a class. When we clear the array, that just says grab everything that's in the list box and get rid of it. That's all we're doing. We're clearing the array. Why would we want to do that? We'd want to do that because if we don't, so let's just pretend for a second that I've got the brand new numbers, and I click original. And then I click original again, and then I click original again, okay? If I don't clear the array, what it's going to do is it's just going to keep building this, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to run right off the screen. We don't want that to happen. So we'll want to make sure we're clearing our array. All right? This will show us the sum of our elements, and I guess I left that in there, but I didn't realize I did, and that's okay. But to figure out the sum, we're going to call a routine called ArraySum. Right now, that's why it's returning 0, because I only put that in there because if I leave this out, I get an error message because it says it's supposed to return an int, and I don't have any return. All right, so I just put a couple kludges in there just so that the program would run. But we're going to put in all of this stuff, and it looks like a lot, but what you're going to find out is many of the routines that we write are going to be very small. And they're based, again, off of the stuff that's in the book. So you don't have to turn there in the book, and I'm not going to bring it up on the screen, but I just did want to mention to you that what the author does talk about in the book, for example, on page 418, he talks about how to get the sum of all the values in an array. Well, that's our sum button. Then on the bottom of page 418 and the top of 419, he says how to find the average. That's our average button. Then on the middle of 419 and going all the way through 420, 421, he tells you how to find the largest and the smallest value in the array. I've done it exactly the way that he has shown it in the book. All right? So we're going to start putting information in here, in other words, in just a second. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to, okay, the idea is, again, when we click this button, we want to make sure that anytime we click original, all right, right now all we're getting is this, that title. And you saw that already. You saw that when I ran the program, if I keep clicking original, I'm going to keep getting this title, original array, all right, which isn't showing me diddly other than a title. Okay? So we want to start actually putting some stuff in here. And again, there is some stuff in here already, as I mentioned. Near the top, again, we've got those two arrays, and we're going to start adding some more stuff right now. All right? So the first thing that we're going to fill up is this fill array thing. So if you go down and find fill array, on mine at least, it's about line 65. Is this a long routine? I guess it's long enough. It's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10 lines. Do you understand now when we're breaking these programs up and we're writing modules, we're getting little routines that are a lot smaller as opposed to writing these big routines that have tons of code in them. All right, we're going to write a lot of smaller routines. So I'm going to start writing this, and hopefully you could find it. Again, in mine, it's about line 65. All right, I'm going to move this way over because basically today it's just going to be about code. Same stuff we did before, or I showed you before. And we want to spell the word random correctly. Now, so far we haven't done very much. That is, this is going to generate a new random number. This is going to clear the array. This is going to write our heading up at the top of the array. But now we've got to put in 6 more lines that are actually going to fill the array up for us. All right? second, we'll go back and we'll talk about what's going on in each one of these lines. I'll give you a minute to type that in. So again, our whole routine has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines in it. And out of those 11 lines, 2 of them are curlies. And 2 more of them are blank. So it really has about 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8 lines of code. 9 if you include the for loop. So they're not big. Now, even if you're still typing, I'll come back, but I want to show you programmatically what we just did. All right, so I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run the program. We'll come right back to it in just a minute. Notice we have numbers now. And notice that now every time I click new numbers, see how it's changing? I'm generating 25 different random numbers. All right, so how did we do that? Well, we told it first, right up here, that is what's called initiating an instance of the random class. Okay? We need to do this because what we're telling the system is, hey, we're going to be doing something with random numbers in this program. Period. That's what we're telling it right there. Then we're saying clear the array. Notice again, if you look up on the screen, I'm going to comment out that clear array line. You shouldn't do this. But I'm going to comment it out. Notice if I run the program again, I still get the numbers. But now notice when I click it again, see how it just keeps adding? You don't want that to happen. I want to clear the array out each time. So I first clear the array, then I tell the system, put in those headings. So in my list box, put in original, array, and then some underlines. So those 3 lines, lines 69, 70, and 71 that are highlighted, that gives me these. All right, that's all it's doing. Then what we're saying is, okay, start at 0 and go as long as it's less than numbers.length. Well, what's numbers.length? That's the number of elements that are in the array. How many elements are in the array? 25, correct? So we're saying start at 0, and as long as it's less than 25, what we're telling it is, run the random number function, give me a random number between 1 and 100, and stick it into our numbers array. And then that number that we just put into our numbers array, copy it to our original array, and then throw it into the list box. Again, the result of doing this is this. And every time we click the new numbers button, the second one from the bottom here, it's first going to call clear array. So you'll notice it keeps our interface clean. We always have just 25 values in there. All right. Any questions on that? I'll leave that up for a minute. I realize some of you type faster than others. But are there any questions about what we just looked at right here? How about this? Does that line by now make sense to people? The one that's in gray in line 83? That just says clear out everything that's in the list box. Remove it. Our list box should be empty. So the first thing we're telling it is to clear the array. So it's calling this. You have to start understanding the control flow of the program. When I click that button that says new numbers, it initiates a new instance of the random class, and then it calls clear array. So then control goes from here over to here. It does its thing, and it says, oh, I'm done. Then control comes back up to here, and it writes those headings. Then control goes to here, and it stays in here 25 times. Generate a number, copy it to the array, copy it to the other array, put it in the list box. Generate another number, copy it to the number array, copy it to the the other original array, and put it in the list box. It does that 25 times. All right. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you may or may not care, but I'm going to mention this to you anyway. Okay. When you debug like this, you're used to, and so am I, just clicking that button right there. But if you go to your debug menu, there's a lot of different ways that you can debug a program. All right. What you can do is, if I want to, I can go in and I can click right there in that gray area by line 73. And that put what's called a breakpoint into my program. That means that literally when the program gets to there, it's going to stop. And I'll have to manually restart it again. The reason I might want to do that is there might be values there that I want to check. Now, you can set breakpoints almost anywhere, and you set it and you remove it the same way by clicking right there. All right? There's different ways that you can run your program. If I right mouse click on here, in fact, if I go over here to there's a view menu, I always forget. Of course, I can't remember what it is right now, but someplace in here, there's other menus that you can add other than the one that you see right here. And there's other toolbars that you can add other than the one that you see right here. All right? Let's see if I right mouse click on here. That isn't what I want. And I think I'm checking right now. If you, on your function keys that are up on the top of your screen, if you hit the F11 key, you don't have to do this. You probably don't want to. But what that does, by hitting the F11 key, it runs your code a line at a time. Now you're the compiler. Watch what happens as I keep hitting F11. Remember when I told you at the beginning of the semester there's a bunch of files in the background that you don't see? Now that stuff is happening, because that's basically coming in there and it's building your interface for you. You could do this, and sometimes with a really complex program, if you kept doing that, you'd press that F11 button maybe 400 or 500 times. Not 4 or 5 times, not 40 or 50 times, 400 or 500 or maybe 4,000 or 5,000. But the advantage is, if I keep doing this, eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to end up going back to my program. Notice I'm still in the designer. That's still building all my interface for me, and it's setting everything up. So you might say, well, geez, why would I want to do this? You probably wouldn't, but you could. And notice all these things on the side. The debugger is recording the fact that I'm stepping through my program a line at a time. And my guess is I've already hit F11 probably pretty darn close to 100 times. And that's all the stuff that got called at the beginning. All right. Now that tells it to run the program. That line that's in there, application.run new form ArrayFun. So notice now, fill array. All right. So it's doing the random number. It's clearing the array. You can see that it goes to the clear array function. It clears it. It comes back again, and it does the original and the array and that. So right now it's built that with our headings in it. All right. Now this is kind of a pain in the butt, but if I wanted to, I could keep hitting F11 and it'll show me that it's going to go through this 25 times, once for each number. All right. One thing Gaddis doesn't do a good enough job of, and that is talking to you about the debugger that's available to you in Visual Basic, or in C# rather. All right. So you say, well, I want to learn more about this. Maybe it'd help me. You know, why the hell didn't you talk about this earlier in the semester? I don't know. But if I come up here and I type, again, go out to msdn.microsoft.com, all right, and I search here, and I search for the Visual Studio Debugger, you go debugging in Visual Studio. There's a whole bunch of them. My guess is if you look long enough, either here or online, there's also going to be some kind of a YouTube video. And I watch these all the time, and some of the best YouTube videos are the ones that are nice and short and succinct. Somebody wants to show you how to do this, and they show it to you in 10 minutes. All right. Notice 2,620,000 results. All right. I'm sure there's one in there that could help you, if indeed that would help you. All right, so we've come in, we've filled our array, we told it to clear the array. This, you don't worry about it because you've already got all this stuff. Okay, so you've already got this. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to add up the elements in the array now. That's going to be the next thing. Okay, so when we click the button that says sum, that's what's going to run. Does that make sense to people? So we're creating a variable up here that's called sum, and what we're going to call from this is the array sum function. This whole function is about 5 or 6 lines long. Again, virtually taken right from out of your book on about page 418. All right. So we're going to call that, and right now it returns 0, which is silly because that's not going to be our sum. So you can go down to where it says array sum. If your lines are close to mine, it's around line 100, and I'm going to remove that return 0 line, and I'm going to put in the actual code. Int sum equals 0. And don't worry that you get that red underneath there. That'll be gone in just a minute. We're going to put another loop in here. For int I equals 0, I less than numbers.length, I plus plus. Now, if you'd all just stop for a second, if you just look up on the screen, does it make sense to you that what we want to do here is we want to take all 25 of those numbers and say 45 plus 67 plus 88 plus 6 plus 55, the same kind of way you would do it if somebody gave you those numbers and you were putting them into a calculator. The same type of thing. But again, we're telling the computer to do it right here. So all we have to do, it's literally one line of code in our loop. Sum plus equals numbers sub I, and then when we get done with our for loop, we return sum. That's the whole routine right there. You notice the red squigglies underneath went away. This should make sense to everybody in here. And if it doesn't, it's your responsibility to ask me, or ask Ben, or ask John if he's here. All right? What we could have done is we could have literally printed these out as we were doing it, but it doesn't really make much sense to do that, but we could have done that. But it's what I just showed you. We're adding those numbers, and we're doing it literally. We're literally doing it for all 25 numbers. All right? Now, I'm going to save this, and I'll come right back to it, but if you look on the screen here, now notice we've got our numbers. Everybody should be cool with that. But notice now if we click sum, if you look up on the screen, now it's 1536. It's not 0 as it was before. If I do this and now I generate new numbers and do sum again, it's 1204. Generate new numbers again, I'm going to be getting different numbers, different sums all the time. So again, all that we've told it to do in here is we create a local variable named sum. We're going to loop through and add up all 25 of our values, and then return the one sum back, and that sum where it says return sum here on line 105, that gets stuffed into right here, and then we print out its result right there. Does what we're doing make sense? I'm asking. See most heads going in a north-south direction. That's always a good sign. All right, then let's jump through and we'll go up. This stuff, I just happened to click that button and I shouldn't have. That's why that activated there. There's no code to put in there. But now we're going to do something similar for average. Okay? And what's the average? What I'm asking you, what is the average? Right, it's the sum that we just figured out divided by the total number of numbers we have. Well, we already know what the sum is, or we could always find it out by calling that array sum, correct? Just another reason for writing it as a separate routine. And once we call array sum, we want to take that sum and divide it by this. That is 25. And that's literally all that we have to do here. So again, you're going to find that we've got another routine here, this array average that we're going to write right here. So if you move down again, I'm around line 125. This whole routine is 4 lines long. So what you're starting to see via the fact that we're using modularization, yes, you're having more routines, but the routines are nice and small and crisp, and ideally they're doing one and only one thing, which is what you're supposed to do when you're writing modularized code. All right. Now this one, I want to keep the decimal place, and I'm working with integers, so I want to put a double in here. So put it all in there. That's the whole thing. That's it, right there. So I'll give you a second to key that in, and then we'll go over exactly what's going on there. Pardon me? Oh, thank you. Return average. Thank you. He's not here. He's not here. I tried sending him an email, but he didn't respond. So again, what we're doing is something very similar to what we did earlier. Okay? Up here, I'm saying average equals array average. So remember that when we're right here and we call this, then control goes from right here down to here. So we create a new variable that's called average and initialize it to 0.0. All right? Then we create a variable called sum. This looks a little bit different if you look at the line that's in gray up on the screen here. What we're doing is we're initializing sum, but we're initializing it with the results of a function. So we're saying run that sum function and return. Sum may not have been figured out yet. You know, you may have just come in there and you put in your numbers and you click average right away. That's why we're calling array sum, to make sure you've got that sum. Then we're saying take that sum that we just got, 1182 in the example I showed you earlier, and divide that by numbers.length. And somebody tell me, why did I cast that? That stuff that's in the paren. Why did I do that? Because I already told you why. What happens if I don't do it? It's an int divided by an int, and it truncates the result. So if I divide sum by numbers.length and the answer ends up being 47.99 as an example, it throws away the whole 0.99 and it says it's 47. So by making it a double like this, I'm making sure that I keep that decimal that I have. So again, what I'm doing is I'm saying go in there and add up those 25 numbers like we did right here and it come up with 1182. Then divide that 1182 by 25 and give me that number. So now notice, now if we run it again, our new number works, our sum works, and now our average works. Wow, the chances of that being 50.00 are almost none. I've run that program hundreds of times. I've never gotten the result 50.00 before. All right? Because the sum was literally right in the middle. Because if you took 50 numbers between 0 and 100, if they were all 50 and you multiplied that by 25, you'd get 1250. That doesn't happen very often. So what we have now is our exit works, our new numbers, our sum, and our average work. So what we have left, and this will work, but right now all it does is gives us that heading. So what we have left is smallest, largest, descending, ascending, and original. Does that make sense? All right, and don't ask me why, but I just happen to work my way from the bottom up, and that's why it's in this order. All right. This right here, you've already got that in there. This says when the form first loads, call the fill array program, so we've got numbers in there to begin with. That's all that does. All right, so let's do the smallest. Now, please listen to this. The smallest and the largest, these two routines, once we actually write this routine here, this routine that we'll write right here, and then this one that we'll write right here, are identical. Except one uses a less than sign, one uses a greater than sign, one uses a variable called smallest, and one uses a variable called largest. So if you are in love with typing, type them both in. If you're a typical programmer, key in the first one, copy it, and make the changes to it. All right? So that's what we're going to do. So we want to call smallest is going to be the result, what we return here from array smallest. All right, so we're going to write that one right now. And that one, array smallest, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. And out of those 9 lines, 4 of them are curly braces. So again, you're not writing a lot of code. All right, so we're going to put, hopefully we'll get largest and smallest done, then we'll take a break. Can one of you in here play computer for a second? Oops. And, yeah, get out of there. I don't want that. Can somebody tell me what you think that line, there's one line of code that goes right here. What is that line? What does this if statement mean in English? It's not the index, it's the value at that index. In other words, did we just find a new smallest number? In English, that's what we just said. And if we did, then smallest becomes numbers sub I. Does that make sense? So again, play computer in here. All right? And go back to here. So it says, okay, I'm going to assume that one's the smallest. It still is, it still is. Oh, that one's the smallest. It still is. Oh, that one's the smallest. It still is. Oh, that one's the smallest. Still is, still is, still is, still is. Oh, there's a smaller one. So it goes through and it says, oh, one's the smallest. And when we do it, the next one, it'll be exactly the same. That's the biggest. Nope, that's the biggest. Nope, that's the biggest. Still 88, still 88, still 88. Nope, now 99 is the biggest. Now 100 is the biggest. Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do in both situations. Whoops. Get rid of that. So now, if we come back to this, and I'll bring the code back in just a second, but now if we save and we come back, now look what works. All right? There's our numbers. There's our sum. There's our average. Our smallest, it says it's 5. Well, let's look through here. We don't have the ability yet to put our to sort our array. So smallest is 8, it's 5, and it's 5. That's right. All right, so we now have that capability in here. And this is where I told you before, I'm going to grab all the code in between the curly braces for array smallest. I'm going to grab every bit of it, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. All right, then I'm going to go down to where we've got our array largest down here, and I'm going to paste it in. But I'm going to change smallest to largest. All right, and instead of saying less than smallest, I'm going to say greater than largest. And again, that becomes largest, and that becomes, that becomes largest. All right? And please just look up on the screen here. So look now, as we run this, new numbers works, our sum works, our average works, our smallest works. It says it's 6, and if you look through there, that is the smallest. And our largest works. It says it's 99. Well, so there's 99, and there is no 100 in there, so 99 would be the largest. So we now have, out of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them now work. So we've got to do the ascending and the descending, and that's all that's left, and then our original order. We really don't have much more to key in. All right. In fact, I'll tell you what, you're probably ready for a break. I am. But let's just put in these last 3. Each of them is going to be somewhere around 10 lines of code. So it's not like you're going to be typing a whole boatload of stuff. All right. The next one I did, I guess I went off in here, but I have the original order. And you've already got these things. But look, if you look up on the screen, there's a line missing in here. Don't ask me why. But what I should have done here in this original order, we should clear that list box first. So I should say list box number array dot items dot clear. I don't believe you have that in yours. So please add this line in your button original order click event. Now, literally our whole routine is 4 lines. 4 lines and we're done. Because it's the original order. So all you have to do is put in a for loop that says print it out. But we're not working with a numbers array now. We're going to be working with this original array. And that's the whole routine. That's it. Again, please add this line if you didn't, because otherwise you're going to get funky looking output when you get done. So please add that line that's in gray if you have not already. And we've got 2 routines left. And each routine will be about 10 lines. All right, but there's good news. Each routine that you have to type in will be about 6 lines, because guess what? We want to do this. Okay? I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to play Eric Larson in just a second. Okay? Because I'm going to take these 4 lines of code, and I'm going to copy them down to sort descending, and I'm going to copy them to sort ascending. Those 4 lines. And Eric asked a really good question last week. He said, hey, you're doing the same thing. Shouldn't that have been a routine? It sure as hell should have been a routine. I should have taken all 4 of those lines, put them in their own routine, and then call that routine 4 times. Then I wouldn't have to worry about forgetting to type in something. All right? If you want to do that, you can. Again, all I'm saying is, what we can do is we can type in, we can create a new routine here that says private void start array stuff. Give it a great name. And then put in those 4 lines. Now in here, I can replace that with just start array stuff. That's a lot cleaner way of doing it. And if I decide there's other stuff I want to do later, then I just have to change it in one place. All right, much cleaner looking. Now notice that my original thing is now only like 4 lines long, 4 or 5 lines. Now if you want to, because the way I showed it to you, I've got it in there multiple times. You can do it either way. I'm not going to take off for you doing that. But doing it this way, writing one routine and calling it 4 or 5 times is a much, much, much better way of writing your program. All right, so all we've got left is the sort descending, which is called from our descending button, and our sort ascending. Now, we're going to put in this code. Each one of them is about 5 or 6 lines. Okay, each one is about 5 or 6 lines, and it's almost the same 5 or 6 lines. I'm going to put it into descending, and then I'm going to copy it over to ascending. You understand what I'm saying? All right, and then I'll have to remove 1 line from the ascending one. Other than that, they're identical. And we'll talk about what all this stuff means after the break. Cheat a little bit here and grab this. That's the whole that's the whole routine there. Now I'm going to take it and copy it down under my sort ascending, and I just want to remove this line that says reverse. All right. Now, this is a good time. I'll leave that up there, but this is a good time for me to now check. Okay, there's my original array. I can do new numbers, but there's ascending, there's descending. I can get my largest, I can get my smallest, I can get my average, I can get my sum, I can get new numbers, and I can exit. So it's now totally, fully functional. All right, so put that in. We'll start up again at 10 minutes after 9, and I want to explain both of these routines for you, to you. And then since we have a little extra time, I'm going to give you an overview of what I've already taped for you, but we'll quickly go over some of the material that's in the chapter and then talk about your assignment. So again, let's take a break, come back. In fact, let's make it 9:15 because it might take you until 9 or 5 after some of you to type all this in. And I'll come right back. If you just hold on a second, I want to stop taping now though.